Hello students, hope you have no doubt about the microstate and macrostate, and if you have any doubt then you can look in the worked out examples. So it will be clear if you do one or two examples or one or two problems using this macrostate and microstate. Now we are going to discuss another thing, which is the phase space. So for that I need to share the notes first. So 1 minute. Okay. So in a single line, phase space is nothing but an abstract phase constituting of the momentum and position of every particle of the system. Suppose you have one particle in a 1D system. So how many coordinates will be there? There will be two coordinates, one corresponding to the position and one corresponding to the momentum of that single particle. So this will be the phase space of that system. Now, every point in the system can specify a microstate of the system. So every point in phase space will specify a microstate in the system. Now, first example is given as the single particle in 1D system. So if you have a single particle, as I said, it will have only one position vector x and one momentum vector, or you can say the velocity vector. So it will be a two-dimensional space. Similarly, if we take two particles, then the space will be four-dimensional because two for position and two for momentum. So here we have taken two particles in a one-dimensional space. So the corresponding phase space will be four-dimensional, where the coordinates are x1, x2, v1 and v2. Similarly, if we have one particle or one single particle in a 2D space, similarly, the phase space will be four-dimensional. X, Y, the coordinate, and Vx, Vy or Px, Py, the momentum. Similarly, if we have n particles in 3 dimensions, then what will be the dimension of phase space? It will be 6n dimension, because for every particle we will need 6 coordinates, 3 position coordinates x, y and z, and 3 momentum coordinates px, py, pz. And for each particle we will have 6. So for n particles we will have 6n coordinates. Now, if in a 6n dimensional space you specify one point, what will it represent? Think yourself. In a 6n dimensional space, if you specify one point, it will represent all the positions and momentum of all the particles. That means you are specifying the state of the whole system. So it will represent a microstate of the whole system. So what is phase space? It is a 6n dimensional space for n particles in 3D. So if there are n number of particles in 2D, we will have a 4-dimensional space, 4n dimensionals. If n number of particles in 1D, then we will have a 2n dimensional space, and so on. So it is an abstract space because we cannot draw it. We can draw only up to 3 dimensions. So this was phase space. Now we will do one example of how does the phase space look like. Okay, so for that we will again go to the PPT. Okay, sure. Now you can see the phase space of an one-dimensional simple harmonic oscillator. Now, the potential energy is given by EP equals to half kx square, you already know. Kinetic energy, you also know, it is given by half mv square or p square by 2m. Now, the total energy of a simple harmonic oscillator is given by the sum of kinetic energy and potential energy. So, p square by 2m plus half kx square gives you E, or by shuffling it a little bit, we get p square by root over 2me whole square plus x square by root over 2e by k whole square gives you 1, which is an equation of an ellipse with semi-major and semi-minor axis as 2e by k, root over 2e by k and root over 2me. So it will denote an ellipse. Now, if you want to know the state of the system, you need to know in which time is it staying. For example, let us take one pendulum, and suppose this is the mean position of the pendulum and we are taking it to one extreme and we are releasing it. So it will start oscillating around the mean position. So when it starts, so look here at the point or on the x-axis, root over 2e by k. So it starts from here. Now you release the pendulum. So what will it do? Its x will decrease, but the velocity will increase, but the velocity will be in the negative direction. As a result, the momentum in the negative axis will increase. So from here, now the point here will denote the state of the pendulum at an instant of time. So suppose at t equal to 0, the pendulum starts from here, and as the time goes on, it will move to the point here. Here it will have the maximum velocity in the negative direction, but the position will be 0. And again it will move to this point, this point. Here it will have the maximum amount of displacement in the negative direction, but the velocity will be 0. So starting from this extreme, our pendulum has moved to this extreme. And again, if you increase time, it will again come to this place and again go to the initial place. So it will go around the ellipse. So whatever be the time, the locus of every state of the pendulum will always be along this ellipse until the energy is constant. So if we fix the energy, all the microstates of the pendulum will remain along the ellipse. So this is an example of a phase space for a one-dimensional simple harmonic oscillator. So each point on the ellipse will represent a microstate of the system. Now we again go to our notes. Okay, so phase space is done. The next thing comes is the density of states. Now in the context to phase space, there is a very fundamental statistical quantity known as the density of states. We have already heard the name many times, the density of states, while doing the laser or in quantum mechanics, I think, while doing the black body radiation. But what is this density of states? It is nothing but the number of microstate, the total number of microstates. Now, how can we calculate it? As I said, every point in the phase space will denote one microstate of the system. So we can divide the whole volume of the phase space by the elementary volume to get the density of states. Now, what is the elementary volume? The elementary volume is given by dq d sorry dqx, dqy, dqz, dpx, dpy, dpz. That means dqx is nothing but dx, dy, dz, dpx, dpy, and dpz. Now we have written here this equal to h cube. How? Here comes the Heisenberg's uncertainty principle, which states that we cannot measure the position and momentum of any particle with 100% accuracy at the same instant of time. There will be some uncertainty, and the product of these uncertainties is dx into dp is given by h, or it is of the order of h, where h is the Planck's constant. So for 3 dimension, we get 3 h's, that is why h cube. So the volume of one phase cell is h cube. Now if we divide the total volume of the phase space divided by this volume of a phase cell, we will get the number of microstates. Okay, so the total volume is given by integration over, there are 6 integrations over dqx, dqy, dqz, dpx, dpy, dpz. Now dqx, dqy, dqz, if we do integrate over these 3, we will get nothing but the volume of the particle V. Thus the phase volume is equal to, phase volume is equal to V into, this is volume of the system actually, not the particle. Okay, so there will be a correction, mark it. So the volume, phase space volume is given by V into integration, triple integration dpx, dpy, dpz, and the number of phase cells will be given by that divided by h cube. Now integration, triple integration dpx, dpy, dpz will give you 4 pi p square dp. Okay, so what is it? If you have a sphere of radius p, then its surface area will be 4 pi p square. And if it is surrounded by a thickness dp, then the volume of this spherical shell of radius p and thickness dp is given by 4 pi p square dp. So I think you already have done this in mathematics. So you should have done in mathematics with, in the spherical polar coordinate system, the volume element is given by 4 pi p square dp. So the total volume of the phase space becomes V into 4 pi p square dp. Therefore, the total number of phase cells or the total number of microstates in the momentum range from P to P plus dp is given by Gp dp equal to V into 4 pi p square dp divided by h cube. Now, look at this term Gp dp. This is the number of phase cells or the number of microstates in the momentum range between P and P plus dp. Now we have to relate it with the energy term. So we need to know the number of microstates for a particular energy range from E to E plus dE. Now what is the relation of momentum and energy? It is given by energy E equal to P square by 2m, or P equals to root over of 2me. So from here we get GE equals to 1 by h cube 4 root 2 pi v m to the power 3 by 2 e to the power half into dE. Okay, you can derive it on your own. It is very simple. So how did we do that? P is given by this equation. So you can write P square equal to 2me here. And we have a dp term. If P is this, what will be dp? dp will be half into 2m into e to the power 3 by 2. Okay. So from here, you can get, sorry, dp will be root over 2m into half e to the power 3 by 2. So if you replace this here, you will get this relation. Now, you have to remember it either, or you can just derive this formula from here. So you can derive equation 5 directly from equation 3 using equation 4. Now, for particles having two allowed values of spin quantum number, for example, electrons, that is electrons can have two spins, plus half and minus half. That is why the number will be doubled in this case. So for a two spin system, the density of state becomes GDE equal to 1 by h cube 8 root 2 pi v m to the power 3 by 2 e to the power half dE. Here we have just multiplied 2 with equation 5. Now we come to different formalisms in statistical mechanics. As we had already told you in the earlier class that statistical mechanics is classified into two categories. So this is dependent on the approaches which we are going. For example, if we are using classical mechanics, that will be called classical statistical mechanics. And if we are using the quantum mechanics, it will be called quantum statistical mechanics. So classical statistical mechanics, it was developed by two scientists, Maxwell and Boltzmann. And quantum statistical mechanics is classified into two categories, Bose-Einstein and Fermi-Dirac statistics. Bose-Einstein comes from Satyan Bose and Albert Einstein, and Fermi-Dirac statistics, it was developed by Enrico Fermi and Paul Dirac. So we will discuss about this. So where is Maxwell-Boltzmann statistic applicable? So there are the basic postulates of Maxwell-Boltzmann statistics. So for Maxwell-Boltzmann statistics, the associated particles are distinguishable particles. That means they are identical to each other, but you can distinguish them. So you can know what particle is, so you can tag a name with each particle. Second thing, each energy state can contain any number of particles. So any number of particles can be possible in any energy state. The total number of particles in the entire state system will be constant. Total energy of all the particles in the entire system is constant, and the particles are spinless. Remember the thing, they are spinless. What are the examples? Gas molecules at high temperature and low pressure, they follow the Maxwell-Boltzmann statistics. So for the ideal gas system or whatever we are talking till now, this system, they follow the Maxwell-Boltzmann statistics. So if you are given n distinguishable non-interacting particles and their total energy is E, then what will be the number of ways in which you can group those n number of particles? It will be given by W, that is the total number of ways. It will be given by pi I n gi to the power ni into pi I n factorial by ni factorial. Here this pi is nothing but the product. Product means you will product over I ranging from I equal to 1 to I equal to n. The Maxwell-Boltzmann distribution function is given by Fei equals to Ni by Gi equal to 1 by e to the power alpha plus beta Ei. Now you do not need to know the details of the derivations of these functions. You just need to know only the form of the functions for different statistics. Now the distribution function is nothing but the probability of getting the particle at a particular energy state EI for a Maxwell-Boltzmann distribution. So for all the statistics, be it FD, BE or MB, we will have one distribution functions which will give you the probabilities of occupying or probability of occupancy of that energy level EI. Now, for Bose-Einstein statistics, what are the conditions or what are the postulates? Which particles will follow the Bose-Einstein statistics? The particles has to be identical and indistinguishable. Look here, the term indistinguishable, that means we cannot tag the particles. For Maxwell-Boltzmann or classical statistical mechanics, the particles were distinguishable. We can distinguish them. But for quantum mechanics, the particles will be indistinguishable. So this is common both in BE and FD. Each energy state can contain any number of particles. Total energy and total number of the particles of the entire system is constant. Now, a new thing is here. The particles have zero or integral spin. 0 h cut, 1 h cut, where the spin values are integral multiple of h cut, where h cut is h by 2 pi, h is the Planck's constant. H cut is the unit of spin. The wave function of these particles will be symmetric. And the examples are photon, phonon, and different kinds of mesons. They are known as boson particle. The particles which follow Maxwell-Boltzmann statistics, they are known as Bolt zones, Boltzon. Whereas the particles which follow the Bose-Einstein statistics, they are known as the boson particles. Okay. And the Bose-Einstein distribution law, Wi, which is the total number of ways for a distribution of n number of particles in GI states, is given by pi I to n, ni plus gi minus 1 factorial divided by n factorial into gi minus 1 factorial. Okay. So okay. Now we go to the Bose-Einstein distribution function, which is FEI equals to ni by gi equals to 1 by e to the power alpha plus beta ei minus 1, where alpha beta are Lagrange's multipliers and ei is the energy of that particular state I. And FEI, as I said earlier, is nothing but the probability of occupancy of that state EI. Similarly, now we are going to discuss the basic postulates of FD statistics, the Fermi-Dirac statistic. Here again, the particles are identical and indistinguishable. The total energy and total number of the entire system is constant. They have half integral spins, that is half h cut, 3 by 2 h cut. This will be 5 by 2, I think 5 by 3 is given, which is wrong, where h cut is the unit of spin. The examples are electron, proton, neutron, all are fermions because they follow Fermi-Dirac statistics. Now, one main thing or the major thing about the fermions are that they follow Pauli's exclusion principle, which states that there can be only one particle in one energy state. So they follow Pauli's exclusion principle, and the wave functions of the system is anti-symmetric. Now, what is symmetric and antisymmetric, I will discuss later. First, see the Fermi-Dirac distribution law. If there are ni number of particles in Gi states, then the total number of ways for arrangement of a ith state is given by factorial Gi by factorial ni into Gi minus ni factorial, and the Fermi-Dirac distribution function is given by Fei equals to ni by Gi equals to 1 by e to the power alpha plus beta ei plus 1. Now, the application of Fermi-Dirac statistics we will discuss in details later. First, we need to know what is symmetric and antisymmetric wave functions. Okay, so for that we will again see the PPT. So there is a comparison of bosons and fermions. Bosons have zero integral spin, fermions have odd half integral spin. They do not obey Pauli's exclusion principle, whereas fermions obey Pauli's exclusion principle. Any number of bosons can exist in the same quantum state. Only one fermion can exist in a particular quantum state. And the wave functions. Bosons have symmetric wave functions, whereas fermions have antisymmetric wave function. So let us have a wave function psi given by psi a1, psi b1, where 1 and 2 are particle and A and B are states. So it means psi prime means particle 1 is in state A, particle 2 is in state B. Again, if we interchange them, we get psi double prime, another state, another wave function, where particle 2 is in state A, particle 1 is in state B. Then for bosons, psi b, the resultant wave function will be something like this. Psi a1, psi b2 plus psi a2, psi b1 multiplied by 1 by root 2. For fermions, 1 by root 2, psi a1, psi b2 minus psi a2, psi b1. Now, if you interchange the positions of the two particles, that is, if you interchange the position of particle 1 from A to B, so if you interchange the position for symmetric wave function, we see that the wave function remains same. So psi B will be psi B after the interchange. But for fermions, the antisymmetric wave function, psi F will be minus psi F after the interchange. So psi F will become 0 if A is replaced with B. Thus, two fermions cannot exist in the same state. So, if you take A equal to B, that means the states are same. Now, what will be psi F? Psi will be then 0, because if A becomes B, we will have psi A1, psi A2 minus psi A2, psi A1. So the details of this is given in the notes. Now we come to the Fermi-Dirac statistics, and we will have a discussion of it in the next class. So for now, we will stop our class right here. Okay. And if you have any doubt regarding this class, you just leave a comment in the class comment in Google Classroom, and we will discuss about it in details there. Okay, thank you.